Morning.
Hello, everybody. I'll give folks a minute or two to hop on before we do our introductions and icebreaker. Beautiful day outside today. All right, let's get started. And as people hop on, we can add them to our introductions and icebreaker. So good afternoon. I'm Joanne Roberts. I help to facilitate the meetings. And the icebreaker today came from the fact that this morning I had a bee land on the screen, and it just felt very exciting to think that the flowers will be out soon. And so if you could be any insect, what insect would you be? I will start so people have a chance to think. There's no right or wrong. I think I would be a dragonfly. I think they're really cool. We have them at our lake in all different colors, and I just think they're really neat. Plus, I learned that they eat mosquitoes. So I think I would be a dragonfly. And we'll just do like a popcorn where we ask other folks. So, afternoon, Sunny, how are you today?
I am doing well. Thank you, Joanne. I am the director of the Dartmouth College Child Care Center. And if I could be, okay, don't judge. If I could be any insect, I would be a cockroach, because they are resilient and can get into places that you just wouldn't even imagine, and they just keep going. So that's the insect I would be. Jesse, you're right next to me, so I'll call you next.
Okay, thanks, Sunny. Hi, I'm Jessie Rady. I am a program officer with the Couch Family Foundation. And I also thought of dragonfly, but I'll go with another winged insect instead and say a butterfly, just because they're so amazing going through all their stages and end up being, just so elegant. And they can fly. I think anything, any insect that flies, has one over all of us. To be able to fly around would be very cool. So I will pass to Julie.
Good afternoon, Julie McConnell, Director of Special Projects with Early Learning New Hampshire. Let's see, I would say a lightning bug, because they're lovely to watch, they're kid-oriented, and harder to find. And let's see, I'll go to Sean.
I'm going to go with the bullet ant. The bullet ant I saw in Costa Rica is ziplining down here. Those things, they're about that big. They're not too big, but they don't bother you. They do their thing, and they protect the other ants that are working on the hive. They're not. People are afraid of them. They don't need to be. They will bite you if you mess with them. But if you don't mess with them, they'll stay right there, and they don't. So I appreciate those ants.
And what were they called again, Sean?
They call them bullet ants. They're about the size of a bullet.
Wow.
Good afternoon, Michael. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon. I'm great. Thank you. Michael Bennett. I am also a program officer with the Couch Family Foundation. And I was going to say dragonfly, and then I was going to say firefly. So I have to come up with something new. I'm going to pick the walking stick, if you guys know those insects. And I don't really know why I'm picking them, other than the fact that they're slow, steady, and somewhat inconspicuous. So, and I'll pass it to Amy.
I'm going with this. I've only seen one. I don't know how it ended up on the playground, but it's a gigantic, Japanese water bug. They look like a dinosaur. They're like this big. And I had called the dispatcher because I didn't want to touch it. And they sent the police down, and they were like, oh, I can't believe I had to come down here. I'm like, it's in the bucket. and they freaked out. They thought it was like, so they brought it back to the station and scared everybody in the town hall with it. And then they didn't know what to do with it, so they took it out back and shot it. So yeah, it's like a Japanese, I think somebody must have bought it to feed. Well, I don't know how you would feed it to someone because it's well armored and it has like pinchers and stuff. It's like huge. But yeah, that was a very exciting day. Anna, did you go with that?
I have not. I'm gonna have to go with the praying mantis. They're elusive and wicked cool, and they eat everything in their path, which would be awesome. Is there anyone who hasn't gone?
I don't know if Rebecca can hear us. Can you hear us, Rebecca?
Hi all, yes, I'm working here. I know I don't usually join your calls. I was hoping to start dabbling with some of your discussions. I don't know what the question is at hand, something about insects or spring.
So welcome, glad you're here. We're doing introductions of who we are, and then if you could be any kind of insect, what insect might you like to be?
I'm Rebecca Owens. I'm with the City of Lebanon Planning Department, and I'm helping with the Lebanon Child Care Facility. And for insects, boy, I don't know. Not very good with my insects, I guess. Well, I'll go with something that's similar, but not quite an insect. I'll go with a moth.
Great, yeah, cool. I made a list to jot down some of these insects. I've never heard of them before, so I'm kind of intrigued to find out what they are. So a lot of great things to talk about today at our workforce meeting. Amy, can you kick it off with talking about the pipeline and also the status of the modular in Lebanon?
Okay, sure. So I mean, it's only been a couple of weeks. We still have 11 in the program, and they 6 have completed their New Hampshire. Well, actually, they all have completed their New Hampshire criminal background checks. 6 have done their fingerprints for Vermont, and 5 don't have an appointment for a couple more weeks. And we're hoping to get at least the state check back, and then we'll have to see if we can work with that depending on what the outlook is for getting the full check back. Right now, it's not looking like it'll even be within the program time. And the group is starting fundamentals. I think it's either this week or next week. They're starting Vermont's fundamentals, so they will be aligned to that, and that's actually already crosswalked to the CDA courses, so that for New Hampshire it'll still count on that pathway. The modular, so I spoke with the person who's going to be drawing out the parking lot, which is a requirement from a scaled map of the parking lot, and so that hopefully will be done this week. I spoke to the company that we were going to use, and they do have a New Hampshire coded unit. It's in Maine, and they'll need to, it's going to take a couple of weeks to process getting it here. So hopefully we're within a couple of weeks. We've already looked at I need the model and all of the information off the unit from the company to fill out, for CCUV to fill out the building permit. So we're kind of one's waiting on the other thing before we can submit that. But it seems to be starting to come together. I mean, we had to wait till the snow melted anyway. They had pushed snow right where we were going to put this. So we needed to wait for that to happen. So I think whenever it's ready, we should be good to go.
Great. Okay. Sean, can you give us an update on the ECE facility?
Yeah, if I can just share my screen here, I want to show you some of the work that's been done. Should be able to see that now, if everybody can see that.
Not yet.
Hmm,
There we go.
okay.
It
So-
says started screen sharing. Yep, now we see it. Thank you.
Okay. So this is what the architect has worked on with the Boys and Girls Club in terms of the programming space, in terms of square footage, the breakdown and of that, and what they kind of project for numbers. And then this is what they've got for space, depend on function, square footage and space, and they're about 20,788 square feet is what we're at right now to meet these needs. There's some tweaks that are some emails going back and forth with little changes here and there. For instance, like, where do you put the we want to compost all the food waste on site, so they want to have a separate location. That's going to require a little bit additional space. And then they also want a separation from the for the training facility where we'll be training childcare workers. They were going to have a shared kitchenette with the childcare facility staff, but they want to keep it completely separate with a separate entrance, so they won't have any access at all to the regular staff there, other than when it's time to do that appropriately. So just a few things like that have been going back and forth. But again, I'll show you this space here. Can you see this? I know it's kind of probably small for you to see.
I can see it. I had a question on the second sheet. How do you read it? So if you were to scroll down to where it said preschool, I think it had a 3 next to it. It's green. Yeah. And
You mean-
number 5. Yeah.
Number 3 training you're talking about, or?
There's, yeah, number 5 classroom. So it says preschool 3, 800, 2, 1600, 16. How do I read that?
Oh, I think that's the
Classroom number?
yeah, that's a classroom number. That's the space number.
That's the square footage. That's
Yeah,
800.
'cause you have toddler 1, toddler 2, preschool 3, and then preschool 4 and 5. And you get the square footages. This is, I guess, based on the Hampshire standards.
So
Oh.
16 preschoolers in one class and 20 in another.
Wow, that's the 2. That's 4 and 5.
Okay.
Classrooms 4 and 5.
I just was asking in advance because I'm sure at some point you'll share this with ECEA and they'll.
Well, I was thinking too, this would be good for the advisory group to take a look at.
Right. That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking. Yep.
Yeah. I
Great.
just got these last week, so that would be good for them to take a look at and provide input on. And then,
Construction costs were 50 to 60% higher. Is there an estimate for how much this project might cost the city?
there won't be this programming piece first. And
Yeah.
once you get your program, then you determine your space, and then we just contracted with REARC is going to be the construction management firm. Made that decision Friday afternoon.
Okay.
So now it's a matter of taking this programming space and then get a conceptual design, and then REAC will price it for us.
Mhm.
And that's all lined up to be done by October, so we can present our capital improvements plan to the city council in
Great.
December.
Other
So no,
questions?
it's too early to tell right now what the price is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm guessing somewhere in there, probably $10 million, somewhere in that range, I'm guessing.
Mhm.
That's a guess, construction prices are out of control right now, and we'll get a better idea then. But I'm guessing somewhere in that range, especially with all the sustainability requirements the city has. No carbon impact, electric vehicle charging stations for staff, all that kind of stuff is, adds cost on, it's expensive. Any of our projects require all that, though.
When will you hear back about the 3 million Custer funding?
Say it again.
When will you find out about the $3 million and there's some kind of Custer funding related to her?
Rebecca Owens is actually.
The bill wouldn't be enacted until later this spring. We don't have an exact date for that. But then after it's enacted, it has to go through the agency. And you actually have to apply. And we wouldn't be filling out the full application to HUD until at the end of this year. and wouldn't actually know if we had that funding until January.
And that's what you're referencing, Amy, in the chat? Congressionally? That's what it's called?
Yes, it's a
It's-
slightly different program of that, though. It's not a traditional CDS. That normally, that CDS process that's approved by Congress in October, well, the federal budget takes effect October 1. They never approve a budget on time, but I mean, and then we don't normally find out till March of the next year for regular CDS. This is a slightly different program.
Okay.
I have a quick question. I should probably know this, but I don't. Is this proposed to be a build out of an existing city-owned facility or a complete new build out?
Completely new. We built an industrial park up by the airport, and it's one of the pad sites up there, and it abuts a piece of conservation land. So we're looking at outdoor education. It's going to occur on that
Yeah.
piece of land there. So it's brand new. It'll be, brand new building from the beginning. We've got water and sewer stubbed out there. We've got 3-phase power. Road's been paved, so it'll be a brand new site.
And I know you've mentioned it in other groups, I'm not sure if it came to this forum, that you're also going to be working with Advanced Transit to try to assist with transportation out in that direction. So you've considered that need as well.
Not just that, but we're looking to fund micro transit through them, that they're going to start a pilot project. The town of Hanover has already approved that. Well, in May, they approved their budget, but there's money in there for them to make their contribution. I anticipate that in my budget, I will have money in the city's budget, additional money for Advanced Transit to be able to provide that micro transit, which has been, everybody's been looking to have that. So that'll provide evening hours and also potentially weekend hours as well, depending on how that goes. So we definitely want to do that. So I think that's probably the better way to do this. I don't know how many people are traveling to a childcare facility by bus. I see a lot of adults, but not too many folks with kids. So the microtransit might be the best way to go for that. But again, that project's, well, my understanding is he wants to start that this summer. So we'll see what happens with the microtransit. But the cities, again, I'm going to put money in my budget. We know we're going to need some funds to do that, to help move that along.
I wanted to mention that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to think about the other things in terms of the facility. We met with the childcare providers on the 3rd. We've got community conversations coming up on the 17th, as it's indicated in at 6 p.m. for the general public. So we have met 4 times with providers. One was specifically with Vermont providers, and the rest was a mix of Vermont and New Hampshire folks. And then we have the advisory group now, so we're going to be using them to bounce off ideas on a regular basis with them. And then community conversations on April 17th. There'll be at least 2 more community conversations, but those will be like July, September, once we get the concept out developed enough so people can actually look at something, gets a conceptual idea what the design will be like. And then we have a whole funding group that's working. Rebecca's on that group with Boys and Girls Club, because this is going to require donations, just like the project I built in Allenstown. It requires donations and tax credits and grants to make it happen. So there's a whole group that's working on that piece. And yeah, that's it on the facilities piece, unless there's any questions, and I'll talk about Senate Bill 221.
Sean, I think I had a question for the group based on the conversation with the providers. I heard a lot of excitement about this facility and a lot of good questions, again, beyond where we are, I think, in the planning. But it's such a wonderfully ambitious, exciting project. And at the same time, I think there was provider concern about the impact of this new facility on their ability to recruit and retain staff. So I think what's not clear to me, if that's an element for this group for broader conversation around the existing workforce and developing the workforce so that you have workforce both for the current programs in the community as well as this new facility when it's built. So that was really just a question for me that came out of that meeting with the providers.
So if you remember, we had 3 groups. We now have 2, because where the facilities group is now combined with the retention and the recruitment and retention group. That's always what always was a key objective when we started this initiative back in August of 2021, is solving that or trying to solve that problem. And get more folks in there. And there's a number of pieces that Amy's really the person, she's the chair of that. She could speak more to that than I can.
So we have we have our pilot sort of coming, wrapping up now with the pre-hires. And then I got a commitment from Boys and Girls Clubs that they're going after some funding, some leftover ARPA dollars to really launch this summer program really strong, so that we can kind of get closer to what our target program is going to be faster, and probably move more people through it, because it is a stipended program and we need money to get people to attend. So I really, originally we were waiting on the pace of this because we were going to really study what we did. We're still going to study it. We're just kind of going to put another phase in the study, which is going to be the accelerated version. And as we're assessing the rest of the program, and then we should have all of that data by fall. And then we can move forward. We can keep what we're doing, we can launch another, we'll have funds as well, hopefully, from what the partnerships that we're building to continue in Lebanon in the fall. And then the ARPA money should kick in, the ARPA D, RFP, if we get it, should kick in by then to continue. If it doesn't, then I do believe that Boys and Girls Clubs will be continuing to partner with us to raise funds to just continue bringing more and more cohorts through that. So I don't see that program ending even after the summer. I believe that there'll be enough interest to keep it moving forward, especially because of this. There was something else, but I can't remember what I was going to say. The intention this summer, Julie, is to do 15 high school, to do a cohort of high school students, like juniors and coming into junior year, coming into senior year, and look at that. The state's also very interested in that. And then to also do a cohort from our regular recruiting of 15 people. We should have the space to do that. We would do it 2 days a week. We're learning it takes about 16 sessions, 16 days with them for them to get through the program. If we double up, one cohort 3 days a week, 2, and then alternate 3 and 2, we should be able to get them through an 8-week period. And by the end of summer, by fall, we should have one, the regular recruiting group, non-high school group ready to go out into the field, another 15, hopefully. And then the high school students could be working, they should be connected to centers. They could be in, a sub pool for after school and out of school time, specifically during, in the summertime, they can work full days, but in the fall, they could definitely be capable of being in a sub pool for after school and in school time or out of school time. So snow days, vacations, things like that.
That's helpful. And I think you shared a stunning statistic at that meeting. You said there were 300 to 400 spaces unfilled because of staffing. Did I remember
at least we
correctly?
just did. Actually, Kim just crunched the data for us last Friday. She wrote the draft. We're meeting tomorrow before we send it out. But it seems like there's a much bigger need for staff. At the same time, there's still a big need, a big amount of open slots, but some people are sort of retracting or contracting their programs. And have you found that statewide, where they're just taking less kids and they're not even thinking about getting to full capacity at this point? It seems like too big of a goal. So when they say, how many kids could you take with full staff? They're like 10, even though they could take 20.
Right. And I think that's important too, to be aware of. And I think part of that too is that folks are seeing more kids with behavioral challenges
Another issue.
on
Yeah.
this side of the pandemic. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't mean to
the
take us
newer,
too far down a different path, but that's helpful to hear that plan. Thank
yeah, the
you.
newer the staff, the less kids they take. They're saying, you know, the centers that have staff that have been there a long time and that can manage rowdy bunches are able to fill to capacity better than the centers that are operating with a lot of turnover, which is most every single center. So yeah, that's kind of one of the things. We don't have the real, I think she asked, you know, Kim really wanted to know what that number was, how many licensed slots are not being used. But I just looked at it really quickly and it didn't seem like, it didn't look like a really good number to use, but I get to talk to Kim tomorrow. We'll find out.
Great, thank you.
There's another question. Oh, Mike?
Yeah, just to insert another thought. I think another piece of this recruitment and retention issue is compensation, right? And employee compensation. And I know, and you probably know more about this, Julie, than I do, but there is a group in New Hampshire that is beginning to come together to begin to think through what are some longer term solutions around wage reform for early educators. And I think that's like, we have to keep our eye on that. At the same time, we're building capacity. At the same time, we're kind of finding new entry points for the workforce. All these things, as you guys know, are interconnected. So we got to push on all fronts.
Michael, what's the name of that group? Is that the one called the working group that sometimes I hear about?
Does it have a name, Julie? I don't know. You may
Well,
know.
I think it's the wages work group, but I could be wrong about that. I've not been attending those meetings, but that is a
Okay.
subset of folks statewide, led by the Child Care Advisory Council, I believe, to really take
Yep.
a serious look at what would it take to launch a significant wages campaign in New Hampshire. And to Michael's point, that, you know, to really impact the wage structure that we know is so inadequate would take a significant infusion of funds. So how do you get to that? So he's right. That's another really critical point of this conversation.
Is it so?
And that group has actually divided into two groups that sometimes meet, and one is looking at what should the wage scale be, and the other is looking at how do we fund it. So, you know, recognizing that you can't just say, this is what everyone should be paid without having a plan, you know, for, you know, how it is funded. And they are looking at, you know, other states and how they're doing things and that sort of thing too.
So you're at that table, Suni. Great. That's good to know.
I attend as well.
Okay, good.
I just have one more quick question about the center, Sean. I know that the city was initially motivated to get involved because of, you know, childcare needs for the city workers, right? And so are a certain percentage of slots going to be held specifically for city workers? And have you thought about sort of what's the mix of full parent tuition pay versus kids on scholarship to make sure there's equitable access for lower income families and that kind of thing? Is that part of the conversation?
There will be no dedicated slots for city personnel. The way the Boys and Girls Club operates, they don't, this is the same scenario that I had in Allenstown, that they're going to provide services to anyone who comes. So in Allenstown, at one point, 46% of the kids who were using it were from Allenstown. The rest are from other towns, Hooksett and Pembroke. They don't discriminate as to which town you come from. In terms of 51% of the parents who send kids there have to be low to moderate income. That's a requirement. That's how we apply for certain grants that allow us to bring in those sorts of funds in there. We may find ourselves in a situation where if we have a large company that says, look, we'll give you money, but we want a certain amount of slots, and we'll have to deal with that as we come, but there will not be dedicated slots for city staff. I won't do that. I don't believe in doing things that way. It's a citywide issue. I mean, I've got Rebecca's one of them. I've got a handful of new parents on staff, and I'm trying to get more. I'm trying to get more younger people because they can't get back into the workforce, and I want to get them back into the workforce. So hopefully we attract more parents with young kids. That's the goal at the end of the day. So I expect we're going to have more, but no, there'll be no dedicated slots though. Any other questions?
1% threshold is a CDBG requirement, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, CGB that's $500,000 if we qualify for that. And that's always been a challenge because the city doesn't qualify itself. However, the population served will be the population that we use for that calculus.
Excellent.
All right, then I'll move on. If there's no other questions about the facilities part of it, I'll talk about Senate Bill 221. Senator Prentice was able to save that from death, as they say. The committee voted to ITL it, which means inexpedient to legislate. But the Senate she was able to get a movement on the Senate with Republican support to at least put it in a study committee. That allows the bill to survive, go to study over the summer and report back to the full Senate back in November. Normally what happens is if you have a bill and it gets killed, you cannot bring it back in the next legislative session, but this allows it a new lease on life. So we'll take advantage of that. The study committee, if you have a chance to take a look at it, actually has more than just this issue of the property tax exemption. There's a number of things listed in there. I encourage you to take a look at it because it applies to the workforce and everything else. It's far broader than what Senate Bill 221 was originally written for, which I think is a good thing. It covers a lot more issues, the realm of issues involving childcare. So that allows us to have discussions about that over the summertime, like I say, and then report back in November.
Is it still called 221 if I wanted to look it up and push it out to this group?
Yeah, you want to look at the amendment, the amended version, that the Senate amended version.
I will do that. Thank you.
I think that's all I have from my reports, unless anybody has any questions of me.
Damien, perfect timing. Sean just finished up with his updates. I know you're at a governance meeting. Can you provide us an update with the ECE facility that you're focused on?
Sure. I think as last we met, I reviewed the issues we were having with our expected state COVID relief fund rewards that we were gotten, with the logistics of using it to bridge the gap between now and when the rest of our USDA and Leahy earmark funding was going to come in at the end of the summer. It's been interesting. It's kind of like a game of whack-a-mole with them on the rules and regulations without funding. One of the issues is that we'd only received $500,000 out of the $1 million we had applied for. The other issue was finding out that they were going to only reimburse 20% per invoice, rather than when we originally were told that it would be 100% reimbursement per invoice up to our $500,000 cap. We were able to make leadway in getting our award moved back up to $1 million, which was great. So that's good progress. Good, again, out of the blue of, well, why didn't we get it to begin with? It's unclear, but so that was a positive achievement from when we were last there. But there hasn't been any willingness to budge on the 20% requirement, which they've instituted and seem to be holding fast to across the board, under the reasoning that it's the only way they could possibly make sure that they never went funded more than 20% if the project failed before other funding came in. So we've been working on figuring out ways to bridge the funding with that 20% requirement. We think we found ways to do that using our a line of credit with Mascoma that we already had opened up for the purchase of the building. so we think we're going to be okay there, but we're still trying to nail down that all the commitments that we got, other than the 20% in terms of how and when we're going to get that relief funding from the state, are going to be what we've been told to date and are nailed in stone. So we aren't going to be surprised again by another issue, because every time we feel like we resolved one issue and figured it all out, then we get something that comes up and they say, oh, but now you can't use it then, or you're not going to get your payment till another time. So we're trying to get all of them nailed down in writing, and hopefully get our grant agreement in soon. So we have something that we're sure that they'll be able to stick to, so we know our workaround will actually work. So that's, I think, most of the updates since then. I mean, our real issue with all this is we need to sign our contracts with our architects and the folks who are proceeding with the construction part of it, because we need that stuff done in order to finalize our USDA grants and other applications, and also to meet our deadlines to start construction by September. So we don't have the luxury of being able to put things on hold while we're working on this issue, which has been the challenge in trying to get clarity on that we're going to have the funding we need when we need it throughout the summer, and yet feel comfortable enough that we can sign these contracts in order to make sure the work progresses so we can get everything done.
Thanks for that update. How large is the facility going to be? Is it 100 children?
I think the last number is about 88 to 90, so close to that. And then they're also using it for some of their other services that they're going to bring in. I want to say high 80s is the number, but not looking at the documents, I might be off a little bit, but it's less than 100, more than 80.
And it's birth through 5, the facility?
Yep,
model?
and birth through 5. Yep.
Okay, great. Sean mentioned about the need to kind of campaign for donations. Is that one of the pathways that you have a focus on too, and trying to get donations for the project?
It is. I mean, we have our capital campaign as part of our budgeting expense. It has been our goal, and thinking behind that is we need to nail down our other funding, have these contracts set up before we really do a concerted capital campaign, because we don't want to start a public, private donor campaign of additional sources until we know for certain everything else is in place. So it's kind of this, it's a tough call to make. On the one hand, now that we're having the difficulties we've had with the changing requirements from the state funding, it would be nice to have some of those private funders ready to go because of the flexibility of the dollars. But on the other hand, having felt more secure in having this one line of funding from the state that was going to bridge the gap, we were reluctant to do that before until we nail down our HUD and USDA funding and know it's in the box. So we are reaching out to some of those additional sources now in the hopes that it will help, create the chance of another backstop if there is another issue. But at the same time, the right way to do that is with a concerted public funding outreach program that's really reaching out to multiple sources with a campaign and materials that we don't have ready yet, because normally it wouldn't make sense to do that till a little bit further on. And it is kind of our hope to build that into some of more of the other construction expenses down the line, as well as some of the startup costs that OCCPC will need to fill in. But so our original plan was to be focusing 100% on that now, having everything else wrapped up, and we've been distracted from doing that, having to spend 100% of our time in trying to deal with the current issues with ACCD. So with any luck, I keep saying this, those will be wrapped up, and then we can turn back to the 100% focus on that public campaign for dollars. I feel, as I was telling our executive director the other day, this is kind of like a bouncing ball where every time we, the ball bounces up, we feel like we're there, and then it drops back down, but it keeps bouncing back up, and we're hoping it just gets stuck on a shelf on one of these times and stays up there, and then we can focus on other things.
Thank you for the update. Every time you provide one, it seems like you have another piece of the puzzle, put in place, which is great. It sounds like it's been a long journey for everybody, so it's nice to hear you're making some headway. Any questions for Damien about the project? It's interesting to hear the parallels between the Lebanon project and this project kind of heading off. Sean, your project is slated for, was it an opening of maybe 2026?
Yeah, I think 2026, probably spring of 26, if everything falls into place. Remember, the last project took 11 years, so this one, hopefully I can get it done to the 3-year time frame.
And what are you thinking of, Damien, for that project?
Our goal was opening 2024, so next to be ready for the next year's season. So at the start of the school year, the regular season has been our goal. Originally, it was actually the 2023 before COVID and all the delays. So we're already a year beyond that, and so we say that with a bit of a reluctance to put a date on it, just because so many things can come up, but that's this timeline we've been moving on. It's important for our budget, and it's why it's been such an issue with getting this recent funding issue, and because we need to nail down those contractors and everybody that we have in place. If we lose somebody, that just increases the cost as we're searching for somebody new and getting other bidders in order to complete the work in time. So
one of the things we're finding, we talked to I had my last interviews with the construction management firms on Friday, is you're talking a year and a half for some equipment, electrical panels, switch gear, fire alarm panels. I mean, significant lead times on some of that equipment just to get it before you even have a contractor, your subcontractors on board, you got to order that equipment. So those are some of the challenges that just add to construction time.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like the HVAC systems and all those, and then they get caught up into the various government made in the USA requirements for these various grants and funds. So they're all things that we're factoring into the timing. So again, we're hoping with the folks that we have working on it, if we can nail down the contract, that it's a doable deadline. But I still, as all of us, have concerns that there's going to be something that we get into it and it's just not going to be available, or something that we missed even once we have the construction started, that's going to delay things for longer than we need. I mean, the good news is we have a fairly solid structure and building that we're renovating in place, so it's a lot of it's internal construction stuff, but still there's 100 different things that you may need that may not be available on time.
Damien, where's the building located?
It's right off Route 66 in Randolph, about 30 seconds from exit 4 down the road. So it's the lower building of the former Enterprise Center at VTC, if anybody's familiar with the building. So if you're coming down the hill off 66 from exit 4, it's a left-hand side. There's a complex with 2 buildings in it off to the left there.
Thanks.
One of the things that we learned in our construction project here was the length of time it took to get heavy duty kitchen equipment. So the big ovens, the heavy duty dishwashers, all of that I just mentioned might not be a problem for you because you're a year out, but I know for us it took a while.
Yeah, no, that's why, and it's what we keep telling the folks in the state, in terms of, why can't you just put it on hold until all these other things, come in, because then we need to have the architects' contracts in to get the construction contracts done and to make the things that we need to order, and expect delays on all those. And if they're not done now, we're pushing out another year, and all those things just increase the cost. I mean, any delay ups the cost of everything else, and everybody else needs to be on hold. So it's been a frustrating part of the progress is communicating the urgency to the folks that saying that, you know, by holding up it's supposed to be emergency relief fundings, but by holding, you know, the idea is to prevent further delays, but by delaying it, you increase the cost and increase the amount of money we need, which all comes back to increasing the cost for OCCPC and increasing the cost for parents and children who are going to be there, because we'll have more debt load coming out of it, which is what we're trying to prevent.
Well, I'm glad you were able to make it. Thank you, Damien, for the update. Appreciate it. Quite a few of the things that we talked about today resonate and connect with a document that Amy and I are working on. And Amy, I sent you a rough draft, but for those of you who aren't familiar, Sarah Koblinski and I met with Rick Mills and Joanne Conroy from Dartmouth Health, and they really want to support ECE, right? From a business lens and also just a child-centered lens. And so out of that meeting came 6 key focus areas: workforce, so pay and training programs, expanding spaces, enabling smaller and home-based programs to thrive, so things like shared services, database, network convening, leadership training for those who are in the field who are kind of at director level, and state advocacy to support creative solutions, childcare needs as a consequence of housing development, because they connect community spaces, allowing property tax relief for childcare providers. And then the 6th was broad conversations on subsidies. What portions of household income would be allocated to childcare? So over the weekend, I broke those categories down, and I'm working with Amy to really create specific targeted steps that Dartmouth College and DH can look at and say, these are tangible. We can support these efforts. This is the time to get involved with vital communities. And this is the group to go through, because we have experts such as all of you who have lived and breathed it and are at the point of providing solutions. And that's really where they want to roll up their sleeves. So the easier we make it for them to dive in, to get the data on the Upper Valley, which is beautiful, Amy, that Kim is bringing that to you. And then you could update kind of the sections above each with specific to the Upper Valley. I'm making it up, you know, there are 300 to 400 slots. Specific to the Upper Valley, there are 20 centers or home programs that would immediately benefit from addition of a bathroom, addition of a wall, fencing, playground equipment. For yourself, the training program, and kind of create the vision for the director leadership program and what different areas of focus that you would want people to do. I think that Amy and I are going to work together on this for the next few weeks, because there's a big RFP that Amy has to get done first before we, get into the weeds on all of this. But I'm pretty excited about it. When we met, they sincerely see this as an issue that they need to be in the lead of to try to solve, and nobody can work in a silo. And so I think that that's great. We will continue to hone it, to add data, to catch their eye, and we will present that to them end of April. So we are working on that. Tomorrow morning, I'll be attending a Dartmouth Cowley meeting with Sarah and Amy. I believe that's at 9:30. This is a group. Oh, Sunny, are you familiar with Cowley? COWLI? What does it stand for?
It's the Council on Work-Life Issues.
Okay.
So they're looking at a variety of issues, childcare being one, and housing another. Those have turned out to be their 2 largest items that they're looking at this time. They were looking at community building, and there have been other suggestions, but those are their 2 main things that they're looking at now. They have had some turnover since the initial group began, and there was a there were recommendations made, but there has been turnover since then. So it's, now how do we act upon those recommendations and decide what recommendations are worthwhile acting on? I'm not part of that group, but I am in communication with them. Some of my family members from the center are on that group, so I do keep in touch. But
And I think virtually is how we're going to meet, because before I hopped on, Amy, there was a Zoom link that went to us. So I skimmed it, but I do think it's for that meeting. And thank you, Sunny, because my to-do list is to hop on and look up Cowley and see what they do so that I can give us bullet points so we have an effective meeting tomorrow. I think maybe I'll kick off with what we've done as an initiative, and then maybe you could talk about the training and the different kinds of centers and programs that we're working on, and then Sarah can kind of bring that collective impact lens and let them know that we are here and we're working on it. So I'm looking forward to that. I think the more people who know that there is work being done, the better. Not everyone knows about this initiative, although we are pushing that out. The other thing I shared with the steering committee that I attended was the Let's Grow Kids overview. I think that was last Thursday night on S56. And the biggest thing to take away is the language is still under revision. It has come down from 117 pages to, I believe, 34. They are looking at the whole preschool section and what that might mean to then how that impacts the legislation that's gone through. There are 7,700 children that will be positively impacted by the legislation that came through. And that does include looking at kinds of funding for salaries, funding for compensation. And their main message was we have to all keep plugging away on it and not check it off as a done deal, because now the hard work of crafting it and what it actually means happens. To thank the senators that supported that legislation is key, and to kind of keep on it. I kind of pictured a little bit of border collie out there nipping at the heels and kind of keeping everything going and moving in a good direction. And so I did share that information with steering committee. So if people want to hop on the steering committee, you might get a little bit more about what they talked about. The meeting was about 50 minutes or so long. And then I wanted to mention that our meetings in May, I think it would be wonderful for us as a group to develop our goals for June, July, and August, because people come and go during the summer. And if there are some main themes that this group wants to work on, I will ensure that I'm keeping in touch with people and keeping things going, because there might be meetings with just less than a handful of people based on people's vacations and all of that. And we want to keep this momentum going. I think that we want to go back and look at the North Stars. We want to go back and look at the main expectations for each of the committees. And we have so much that's changed since we adopted them in November. It'd be nice to go back and reflect. And I just want to support everyone as best as I can, but also realize that people need to get away a little bit. And I would like to work on that. Is there any other business for today? I'll be going around picking up the Week of the Young Child signs and banners and keeping those. And I'll email you about where we can store them at Vital Communities. But,
yep, we have the spot for that.
Wonderful. It was really nice to see people's reactions. As I mentioned to Amy, the design, people really loved it and embraced it. That was wonderful. And this year was a start. And now that we know how it could flow and what it would look like, I'm already excited about what we can do for next year. Right, Sean, I thank you for allowing me to stick posters all around the corners of the green and the banner as well. I saw it over in Enfield. I didn't drive up through Hanover, but I am hopping over to the CVS later today. So I don't know if their banner's still up or not. But when you drive through these main cities and towns and you see these big banners, it does resonate. And I think that's something that we talked about, and it was an accomplishment this year. So I thank everybody for their efforts on that. Our next meeting is Monday, April 24th, believe it or not, 12:30. Anytime things come up that you want me to add to the agenda, please just send me an email. We'll make sure that we continue on. And if there's specific topics you'd like to talk about, completely open to adding them to any agenda. Anything else for today?
Joanne, on 221, when you get that, can you send it to the advocacy group? Because that's something we could put a package together when those study group starts
Yeah.
to those meetings. That would be a
Yep.
great opportunity to plug in a lot of information to them. So if you could pass that on to them, that would be great.
And that would be under the Senate.
It is, yeah, Senate Bill 221. Yeah.
Okay. That's
The
fine.
amended bill will have all the full range of what is now included in that study group.
Great. All right. I hope everyone enjoys the lovely day and that you get outside. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Good work.